Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones, and let the magic begin.
Two Weddings and a Manhunt by Deydralinne, Chapter 11, August 7th, 2003. The realtor looked between the two people before him. Both were visibly angry. With their arms folded across their chests, he took a deep breath and unlocked the front door. Waving his permission to investigate, he hated jobs that involved bickering couples. But what was worse was when the couples said nothing to each other. And these two hadn't said a single word since they had left his office 2 hours ago, other than the shake of a head at the previous 3 properties he had shown them. There had been no communication at any level. And there certainly had been no feedback on what it was they were actually looking for in a home. Of course, he knew who they were, which only added to the intimidation he felt. It was also an easy assumption to make that they would be upset by this morning's article in the Prophet. He let them walk around the property for 5 minutes before heading in. It was a cozy family home on a lifestyle block. He shuddered to realize that the couple were glaring around the place, avoiding eye contact with one another. He cleared his throat awkwardly. So, there are 5 bedrooms, a nice big backyard. One of the trees has a tire swing for when the little one is older. The air leapt his lungs at the way they both turned to him with deathly glares. "I'm not pregnant," the witch hissed at him through gritted teeth before storming out to the front of the property again. Her husband sighed deeply before throwing him his own glare. "Great. Now I have to go deal with that. Again. Your listings. Give me the portfolio and stay here." With shaking hands, he handed him a stack of papers, all profiling the properties assigned to him. The realtor practically collapsed onto the stairs and took several deep breaths. "Hermione," Draco growled at her pacing form. She threw a look his way. "That's the 5th person since we left the stupid healers on top of that absolute disaster. I still cannot believe the way she was treating you, Draco. It's uncalled for. I know that there's pushing a client, but that was too far. Especially for a simple divorce case. 5 freaking people have congratulated us or made some stupid comment on our non-existent baby. I swear, I will not be held accountable for my actions if anyone else says anything." He stepped slowly closer to his pacing wife. She had a kind of radiance about her when she was angry, but it had been a rough morning, and so he let her vent. Better to get it out now rather than hex him later. "Do you think that's why he keeps showing us freaking family homes, even if I was pregnant? Which I'm not." Draco raised an eyebrow when she yelled the last 3 words to the house behind them. "This is not the kind of house I would want to raise a baby in. Is that how people see me? Hermione Granger, war heroine, living in a white picket fence fairy tale cottage in the countryside surrounded by baby ducks and chickens? Don't forget the penguins," Draco offered. It seemed to be enough to break her out of her mood because those big caramel colored eyes stared back at him for a second before she burst out laughing. "Right, of course, a whole assortment of birds. I'm a bird, it seems." Draco shrugs. "You're a bird, I'm a bird, we can own a whole aviary of birds. But we can't do it here because Merlin Granger, I hate this place, so get your butt over here and help me sift through all of these." She smiled at him in appreciation. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me rant and for calming me down. Thank you. I know today hasn't been ideal for you either." They flipped through the papers, surprisingly holding the same views on nearly everything they saw. A series of no's and the variations of spewing quickly from their mouths in unison. Hermione stopped him as Draco flipped to a penthouse in central London, right on the border of the Muggle and Wizarding worlds. "Yep," Draco stated, tearing it from the portfolio and taking it to the realtor. It was only further confirmed when they stepped inside. This would be the place they called home for the next 12 months. The large living space was 2 stories high, with floor-to-ceiling glass windows that overlooked the city below along the entire side of the apartment. There was a beautiful, modern fireplace set in stone, and on the opposite side of the room was an expansive kitchen made from white marble. The island with a breakfast bench overlooking the living area. There was a hallway that led to two large bedrooms with a bathroom nestled in between them. There was a staircase behind the kitchen that led up to an open balcony that overlooked the living space. Another hallway upstairs led to two more rooms, with another bathroom between them and an office at the far end. The place was huge, modern, and perfect to live in comfortably for the next year. "We will take it," they said at once. A stab of guilt hit Hermione at the look of relief on the realtor's face. "When can we move in?" Hermione asked absently, stepping forward towards the windows. "Well, I would have to check with the current owners. Typically, it would be a month before handover." The poor man's babblings fell short as Draco held up his hand in silence. "No, too long. Get on the phone right now and tell them I'll double the asking price to be in by tomorrow afternoon, and then you file whatever paperwork you need to make that happen." Hermione raised an eyebrow at him, smirking when he caught her. "You're impressive when you're working. You know that?" He chuckled. "No point in mucking around, and I've found that money can almost always fast track things. You didn't mind, did you?" She folded her arms. "What, and spend a month crammed in the studio or tiptoeing around the manor carefully, trying not to set off panic attacks? No, thank you. I'd rather pay the extra too, though this place is significantly larger than the studio. Might need to do some shopping for extra furnishings. I love this couch, though. It will be such a shame to see it go." She ran her hand across the back of a large, light blue, L-shaped suede couch. It looked big enough for at least 10 people to sit comfortably and still have room. Behind her, she heard Draco tell the realtor, who was now on the phone with the owners, that he would throw in extra for the couch. She chuckled to herself. She knew she should feel bad about the ridiculous way in which they were spending money at the moment, but she simply couldn't bring herself to care. They had already gotten themselves into this mess, and they may as well enjoy the adventure. Otherwise, it was going to be a long 12 months. If the war had taught Hermione and Draco anything, it was that life was short. You may as well enjoy it. They found themselves wandering upstairs and peering into the large bedrooms. The floor-to-ceiling windows ran along this whole side of the building, which meant that all 4 bedrooms and the office were shrouded in a light glow from the setting sun. Even the bathrooms had floor-to-ceiling windows. Thankfully, though, it seemed they were frosted. Not that they weren't high enough up that it wouldn't matter, but it still eased Draco's nerve. "You should take this room. It's closer to the office, which should be yours too. Makes more sense for you, given your work," Hermione said, waving her hand at the biggest of the rooms further down the hall. Draco raised an eyebrow at her. "If you're sure." She simply waved her hand dismissively at him and went back to the room she had claimed for herself at the start of the hall. The realtor came to find them a few minutes later, looking very pale. "The owners have accepted the offer and conditions, and the property will be yours from 7 a.m. tomorrow." Draco smiled. "Relax, Michael. You'll be getting double commission too for making sure the paperwork is filed properly by then." Then he turned back to Hermione. "So, game night tomorrow moved here?" She nodded as if it were obvious. "Do you need help to tell your mummy again?" She poked her tongue out at him. "I'm sure she will figure it out when she realizes I haven't been home for a while," he deadpanned. "Christ's sake, Draco." She shook her head. "I don't care what you have to do to make it happen by then, Clarice. I want the furniture delivered and all rooms set up by 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, and not a minute later." Hermione walked animatedly, waving her arms around, talking into some muggle device pressed against her ear, pacing the sitting room. Draco, however, was taking what he felt was a well-deserved break by reading the remainder of The Prophet that had been snatched away from him earlier that morning. His mother's copy had thankfully not been thrown around the room, and so therefore remained intact. He peered up as his mother entered, pausing to observe his wife with intrigue. "Who is she talking to?" Narcissa asked, coming to sit in the armchair next to him, pouring herself a tea and watching the witch argue into the thing she called a phone. Draco had returned to his paper, trying to find if there's anything of interest in the business section. "She's ordering furniture." "Is her room here not to standard? Perhaps she would prefer one of the rooms intended for family upstairs, his mother hinted. I'm sure the room she's using is fine, Mother. You have impeccable taste. She's ordering furniture for the new house. We closed on property this afternoon. He looked up to see his mother staring at him. Whatever emotions she was feeling weren't visible. Hermione snapped the phone closed and stepped toward them. Oh, I see. May I make a request then if I'm to be left alone? Her quiet voice stabbed at Draco's conscience. Would you two still visit once a week for dinner? Hermione shook her head. Narcissa, of course we will come for dinner whenever you like, or Draco will if you prefer I didn't attend. But you should know that I just ordered the furniture for your room at the new property. You're welcome to stay as often or as little as you like. My not wanting to live here at the manor isn't personal against you, and as I don't have the option of having my own parents nearby, I would never dream of trying to separate you and Draco. Narcissa stared at the young witch in shock. I have a room, she spluttered. Hermione laughed as if it was presumptuous to think otherwise. Of course, though it won't be as elegant as your room here, I'm sure, but it will be yours and yours only to use whenever you wish. Draco observed his wife in quiet shock. Hermione had not mentioned to him, but here she was making sure his mother wouldn't feel rejected herself. It was a gesture that he appreciated more than he could express. It seemed that this witch was constantly surprising him, and he wasn't sure he liked that. Of course, he should have expected nothing less from Hermione Granger. She had shown time and time again to be a selfless witch who always sought to make sure those around her, no matter the capacity, were taken care of. He supposed it was just somewhat surprising that his mother fell into that category. His mother seemed to be trying to draw her own conclusions because she was quieter than he had memory of her ever being over dinner, as she threw glances her way before glancing at him. Draco just knew that she was formulating opinions and plans in her head, and he wasn't sure he liked that. Hermione, dear, what do you do for work? His mother asked suddenly over dessert. The abrupt sound of someone's voice after 40 minutes of silence seemed to startle her. I don't. I was working at the ministry after the war, right up until about 6 months ago. Then I was rather burnt out. I had gone into the job with false expectations that I would be changing the magical world, helping shape it into something better during the rebuilding process. But everything was pushed back or denied, and in the end, I gave up. It's not my finest moment, I'll admit. I'm looking to go back and try again in a few months, but I just needed some time to myself. I hadn't allowed myself that after everything that happened before jumping straight into work, she explained carefully. Oh dear, you don't want to do that. Mother, he warned over the top of his whiskey. What do you mean? Hermione asked hesitantly. Well, you won't ever achieve what you want to achieve working at the ministry. You were brilliant in the war. In my opinion, I'm not sure the war would have been won without you, but you are wasting your time at the ministry, darling. Mother, Draco warned again more harshly. Hermione stared at Narcissa, seemingly not sure what to make of her statement. What would you advise me to do then? Hermione did well to hide the annoyance in her voice. If it wasn't for the spark in her eyes, Draco wouldn't know she was annoyed at all. It annoyed him that he knew that about her. Every change you want to pass will go before a board of directors or pass in front of a committee. The people on those committees and boards are not ministry officials, but members of esteemed families with a few nominated outsiders. You need to find yourself on as many boards and committees as possible. Men don't like to listen to women and their ideologies when they are placed before them in a professional capacity. But you would be surprised what you could achieve over a glass of wine and a few well-timed jokes at a gala. The glint in her eyes had disappeared, and Draco could see the wheels turning in Hermione's mind. I don't think I will have much luck being nominated for a seat, Narcissa, as much as I can see how that could be a lucrative plan. Narcissa smiled at Draco. He knew that smile. It meant his mother was up to her old tricks. She had set a trap for Hermione, and the poor thing hadn't even realized that she had been caught. She turned back to Hermione with a sickening level of glee. Darling, you don't need to be nominated. You are married into the Malfoy family, and since Draco hasn't claimed our seats since I stepped back, you would be free to do so as his wife. Hermione blanched. Narcissa, we are getting a divorce. Yes, I know, dear, but that won't be for a whole year, assuming they approve the application. Think of all the changes you could implement in that time. After all, there is no harm in taking advantage of the opportunity while it's there. Come see me in my study after dinner. We will notify everybody that you will be stepping in to fill my spot. She rose with a smile that spoke of victory and glided from the room, Draco glaring after her.